Hello, hello, hello. What's going on, boys? Runnin Routes podcast here.
Let's go. Hit
Let's
me.
go.
Hit
Last
me.
week we hit you with the AFC. You know how we thought each team was going to play out. So they're good. They're pros. They're cons. They're good. They're bads. What they needed. Where we think they're going to finish the season out potentially. This show we're going NFC. We're gonna do the other side of the other conference here this in this show. How you guys doing today?
Doing great, baby. How you doing? You look great.
Doing good.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Let's go.
All right, let's jump into this. Let's go right in. Dive right in.
NFC. Let's go.
NFC East going up first. Dallas Cowboys. Um, Honestly, for me, I'm gonna do a little bit of a spoiler alert here for pretty much everybody in the NFC East. I'm going some sort of D line here for their best position group here because this NFC East, everybody's got the same MO right now. It's D line getting the quarterback, and they're all good at it. They're all great at it. So Dallas Cowboys best position group and it's edge. It's Micah Parsons, just plain and simple. Similar how I had Pittsburgh Steelers in that last show, with TJ Watt. Micah Parsons changes the game. He's one player alone changes the whole thing, and then you still got to worry about Demarcus Lawrence on the other side. And then you got rotation guys behind them of Dorrance Armstrong, who had 8.5 sacks last year. Dante Fowler Jr. You got the year two guy Sam Williams. They had 54 sacks last season. This is a tough edge defenders that get after that QB. So best position group for me in Cowboys is the edge.
I like it.
Worst, I'm gonna go linebacker. And they got some issues going on, and big part of my thinking is their best guy, Leighton Vander Esch. I like the guy, but he was almost cut 2 seasons ago for Micah Parsons. Had Micah Parsons not transitioned into that, QB killer edge position, but he was going to be there, and they were going to get rid of Leighton Vander Esch. But he earned his way back. He got his new contract. Now does that play into the fact, hey, I got paid now, I'm on the team, I don't have to try so hard anymore? We'll see. I'm not the biggest fan of that. And the other guys next to him, they weren't starters before. They need to step up big time. They're not big names. Jabril Cox, Damon Clark, Devin Harper. These guys they need to show that they're willing to play with the big names that are around them on that defense. Because there's a lot of big names on that defense.
Okay.
Needs to win the division. Um, Honestly, the new coordinators in Philly can't keep that high speed train rolling because that hurt them. The way Philly was playing, and if Philly takes a step back, it's almost Dallas's for the taking. And obviously, the second thing is that offense has to live up to the hype. Dak's got to stay healthy, play clean football. Those interceptions were killer. They didn't help. Continuing to live up to that hype with the offense. Tony Pollard, Elliott's gone. He's got to live up to the hype of being the guy. So we'll see how this goes. I got them as a 9-13 win team. They can be real good here, real dangerous. Where you at, Charlie, on them?
Literally, it was
I,
like me and you
I
were
took your
sitting
sheet.
down and going over this blueprint together. D line, strong point, obviously. Parsons, Lawrence, Sam Williams, second year. You mentioned Armstrong, Fowler, drafted Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. He
Didn't
got
even
a lot of
mention
Stud.
him.
run, a lot of
Stud.
run in the first preseason game. They even got this kid out of FAMU that I saw during the draft process, undrafted free agent Isaiah Land. Um, Crushed it in D2 with FAMU. It's deep. They got pieces for everything. I mean, you got Galmore, you got Haskins. You can rotate in for run defense. Chauncey Golson. I mean, it's very similar to Phillies and everything you said. Right on the head. Linebacker was my weakest position as well. Van Der Esch did have a good season last year. You definitely telling the truth, but behind him, young, unproven, slight guys. I worry about the coverage with them, and they're definitely going to have to learn on the job because um, the, there's not the veteran leadership there. But the way they get after the passer, it's going to help those boys out tremendously.
Yep.
Um, I almost went running back until I saw what Deuce Vaughn was able to do in the first preseason game. And I watched it at K State, but to see him employ a similar style with success that he did in his first preseason game, it was eye opening to me to see that he still possesses those characteristics, and they're going to translate to the NFL. makes me feel a little bit better about the running back room. Obviously, those are two small guys. You know,
Yeah.
coach says he wants to run the ball more. I don't see it with those two necessarily, but I think they're going to be a very good complement to each other.
A lot of
It's big.
outside runs to the sideline.
Well, Deuce Vaughn was doing it up the middle, and Tony
Yeah.
Pollard was in between the tackles last year too. So these little guys behind that good deep offensive line, they know how to run the rock. It's a huge year for Dak Prescott. It's a make it or break it year. I feel like for Dak Prescott, I've been a supporter of his. He's gonna have to play much better this season for the Dallas Cowboys to ascend to where we kind of think they're capable of getting in this NFC. As far as the win total goes for them, I'm looking 10-12. I think there could be some bumps in the road, but the talent is there. I could have picked many different position groups: O line, wide receiver. The talent's there, but it's been there. So what gets them over the hump? Hopefully, it all comes together for them. But that's what I got. How about you, Ed?
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, guys, literally. And it's crazy too, is because we don't hang out much, and we really don't talk much about football until we actually all sit down and actually do this. So I just love to point out that each one of us do our homework completely different and separate from one another. I also too picked the defensive tackle. I went D tackles, D linemen. I wanted to say the front seven, but that's two separate positions. So I said the D line for me. After I seen Mozzie from Michigan play in that game, didn't come away with a lot of stats, but the one thing that you could not ignore were the fact that they kept saying his name, meaning that a D tackle doesn't always necessarily need to get a sack and need to get the tackle behind the line of scrimmage in order for him to be an effective defensive tackle. Now, all he needs to do is take a play that was designed to go up the middle and have the running back bounce it out to the edge with the talent they have on the perimeter here with what the boys were saying here, Micah Parsons and all the other savages on that D line. It really plays into what the strengths are of Dallas and what their weaknesses are. So that allows, the defensive backs to go out there and cut underneath a route and try to go get the ball as opposed to go and try and stop the receiver from catching it because they have so much faith in their defense altogether. I picked the defensive line, best position. I picked worst position because Charlie took the words right out of my mouth. I'm not a believer in this running back group. I understand that we got the ghost, Deuce Vaughn, looking very well in the first preseason game, not up against starters. He fared well. But the size of the two worry me. You have one guy coming off an ankle injury, and dude, let's just face it, he literally looked like a freshman out there running around. Like, who let this kid? How's this kid on the field? Is he even old enough to be out this late? He's a small framed guy. And, they talked about Reggie Bush not being a running back in the NFL and should be more of a slot guy because of his shoulders and how little he is. And, Reggie did some good things because he was a talent. And I think that that's what we're going to get out of Deuce. I don't have much faith in them. And I do believe that Charlie's 1,000% right, that this is all going to come down to Dak Prescott. In my opinion, Dak Prescott staying healthy. And he has to clean up the interceptions. When you take a look at what the defense is providing for you and how many points you're scoring on offense, literally all you have to do is just stop the interceptions and you probably win a couple more games. And then maybe, the game you end up playing is in Dallas and it isn't in Philly. I just think moving forward, what else could it be for them? They are just talented, like the guys are saying, man, from wall to wall, position to position, they have the talent. It was very difficult on this team to pick a a position group that I didn't like. I still like the running back position, but I just don't like the running backs running up the middle, the small frame like that. You're going to get hurt. And that stuff to the outside only works so much. To me, I think that it is going to come down 100% to Dak Prescott, unfortunately. I think they're a 9-11 win team, but I think eventually the Eagles, as long as they keep everything, I mean, Georgia keeps everything together, I think they end up winning the division. I don't know. How about you guys?
Yeah, the Ronald Jones signing, I just scratched my head at because it's like, how much do you think you're going to get out of him? Now, maybe it works out. Maybe it
Yeah.
does, and maybe he has a turning point in his career. But you know, that baffled me.
Sorry,
Why don't
Bucks guy
you
says
go
no.
up? Yeah, why don't you go after somebody a little bit more skilled?
I
That's a
would have
big
liked
guy.
to see Miles Sanders go to Dallas.
Damian Harris. I mean, I'd rather have Damian Harris than I would Ronald Jones
I
personally.
would have
Now,
liked to
Damian
see
Harris has got his
Miles
fumble.
Sanders go. I would
Yeah,
have liked to
Hey,
see.
there's a lot of options out there in free agency and just
yeah.
movement in general this season, but there's still options in free agency. And you pick up Ronald Jones, who did he did he touch the field in Kansas City
Oh
No,
behind the
no,
seventh rounder
they
there?
were
no,
desperate for a running back, desperate,
no.
and he
I
didn't
would have liked
even
to see Dalvin Cook go.
suit up. Yeah,
I would
it
like to
was
see
it was
Kareem Hunt go. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many people that would
can't
just,
name a bad
Yeah.
name really to
Uh,
put on that offense,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. It'll be interesting. Cowboys are definitely a team to watch though for sure.
yeah.
But
no doubt.
let's keep this train rolling because I'm sure with this next team Eddie's going to get a little hot winded. We're going New York Giants here. Eddie's team, Eddie's boys, the blue. For me, continuing the trend, best position group. I'm going interior D line because you got Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams. They
How do you
are
not?
Indy's version of Buckner and Grover Stewart. So big dudes, scary, hard to go up the middle. You got to change your way you run the offense if you're an up the middle team. So
Athletic to
there's
be
that.
that big.
And then
Athletic.
on top of that, you got a Sean Robinson, and you picked up Raheem Nunez Roaches from the Bucks, who I hated to see go, but that dude's awesome. He's a great rotational guy, and he'll even get after the quarterback when he gets in there. Like he wants to earn his spot and prove his point. So I
Great
love
motor.
that dude. He's good,
I
and you
love his
guys drafted
attitude.
Jordan Riley. You drafted Jordan Riley there. So interior D line's gonna be tough to go against those guys. Worst position group. I hate to do it, have to do it. Wide receivers. Isaiah Hodgins claimed off Buffalo last year, nothing special. Darius Slayton, he's good, but he's no number one. Paris Campbell just left Indy after 4 years. Last year was his first full season in 4 years. So
Yeah.
Giants love their injury riddled wide receivers, so they got another one. Jalen Hylett, rookie from Tennessee, round three, could be good, but they played in a weird offense. How's that going to translate to the NFL, especially with Daniel Jones as your quarterback? How much playing time you're going to see?
Yeah.
And then your other guy you got is Sterling Shepard. Year three, coming off IR. He's on and off multiple times. That wide receiver room. It's either on the IR, about to go to the IR, coming off the IR, and then there's Darius Slayton, who's good, but he's the only consistent one. But again, I don't believe he's a true number one in the NFL. I hate to say it, but I got it. That's just opinion. It is. It is. So needs to win the division. You got to beat the Cowboys and Eagles. Since 2020 versus the Eagles, you're 5-2. Lose. You only won two. Cowboys, you're 5-1. So you got to beat those guys in order to win your division. And right now, you're just not doing that. Um, Only other point to that is Saquon's got to play like he deserves the money that he wants. I hate to be the dude, that guy that says, Saquon, go earn your paycheck and, do it. That way they have to pay you the money that you deserve, so to speak. But we'll see. He needs almost a 2021 Titans Derrick Henry, look to it for them to win the division. They got, he's got to look really good, and that defense has got to hold it together. For me, this team's anywhere from 5 wins up to 10. It's hard to predict because there's so much disgruntle. There's so much potential to go bad. Because last year you looked good, but you also had the easiest schedule. Now you got the hardest schedule in the NFL to go against. So I don't know if you'll look as good. You're gonna have a tougher road. Again, 5 to 10. I don't know where you at on this, Charlie.
That was a fantastic take. I just want to say that, like, that was great coverage right there. I disagree a little bit on the wide receivers only because of the volume that they brought into camp with, all the way down to Jamison Crowder. Beasley, just the depth there makes up for me for the maybe lack of high end talent. And I think you could have something later on in the season with Hyatt once he gets acclimated. Daniel Jones gets acclimated to what is probably going to be a more pass heavy offense, because I think they feel that same bubbling up from the Saquon Barkley situation as all of us do. But to go to mine, I think Eddie would be happy with this. I took the tight end group as being my favorite
I like
position
it. I
group
like it.
just because of the diversity that is within that position. Now, obviously, you talk about Darren Waller. Obviously, he missed a lot of time last year, and that was tough. But I have no doubt on this kid's work ethic, the demons he's been able to overcome, the NFL career he's had, the walls he's had to go through to do that. Daniel Bellinger last year was a revelation. This is a kid
Mm-hmm.
that damn near lost his eye out of socket, and he made it back and it played even better, grew within the offense, trusted within the offense. I love that. And then my guy Lawrence Cager from the University of Miami, a very versatile former wide receiver. So I just think there's really nice balance going on within there. My weak spot, it's for me, it's the secondary. And I'll preface this by I do like some pieces out of the secondary. I love Jackson, and I do like Pinnock a lot. And then I like him a little bit more after seeing what he did in the first preseason game. I do like McKinney as well, but the depth and the third and fourth cornerback type of rotation, if those guys are forced into more situations where they got to be on the field, it's a lot of unproven young guys. That kind of concerns me with the type of offenses that they'll be going up against. But I think you nailed it on the head with the win range too. I went 7 to 10 wins ultimately for them. I think at the end of the day, you're right. It is going to come down to Saquon Barkley and how much of this is I'm going to play just like last year, where I'm a beast and I'm important to the team, and how much of the balance is going to be with how much do I protect myself from this situation? And I think that goes hand in hand with the coaching staff. How much do we in turn put on Daniel Jones's shoulders? And how do we balance out that Saquon situation? Because it's going to be an elephant in the room throughout the season, I feel like. And I felt like that in the preseason, even before this, or the off season, even before this, recent signing and coming together and all this stuff. I felt like it was going to be an issue regardless for them. But 7 to 10, I don't mind 5 to 10. It's hard for me to like want 5 to 10 on paper, but it's reasonable considering the amount of variables that are at
Mm-hmm.
play. How about you, Ed? What you got on your boys?
Well, this was a tough one here because it really pissed me off when I looked the numbers up. Yeah, so basically the team only had Saquon Barkley. If you take Saquon Barkley out of the equation, I mean, it's dismal at best, right? Eddie, what the hell are you talking about? Well, if you take Saquon Barkley's 1,300 rushing yards away and his 10 touchdowns, okay, basically the offense did nothing because the only other person that accumulated anything, 71 targets, Darius Slayton, he's the only person to have double-digit big plays. No one else on the team had, not even Saquon Barkley, not running and not catching. Okay?
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley was tied for most targets on the no, he was first in most targets, 76. Darius Slayton, 71. Darius Slayton, 724 yards, 15 yard average. He only had 2 touchdowns. I mean, all these guys are coming back, even with the acquisition of the handful of guys that potentially maybe, Cole Beasley, who ended up leading preseason in catches and yards. Jamison Crowder. And then with the likes of Jalen Hyatt, and then everybody that's still coming back, Danielle Bellinger, plus with the acquisition of hopefully of the tight end coming over from the Raiders, and he ends up having, an incredible year for us and stays healthy. even with all of that, I mean, I had to have them as my worst position group because it was the least amount of production out of the offense. Because at least at running back, Saquon Barkley got 1,000 yards. None of my receivers, like you go and you look at the receiving yards of the receivers, 71 catches, 700 yards. Richie James, 70 targets, 57 catches, 569 yards. And look at the averages, averaging over 10 yards. Averaging 15 yards, 10.6 yards. It's like those top three guys are it. Isaiah Hodges, Darius Slayton, and Richie James, and one of them is gone. So now we're going to have somebody come in and fill that. So to me, best position, D-line. It's not the worst position. It's just a position that isn't producing. So I think hopefully with this wider range of receivers, maybe we can get some production. But the D-line was the best position group, the worst position group, and not the worst, but the most underachievers on the squad was the wide receiver position. What do we need to do? I need more big plays. I need big plays, and I need us to score, and that's the only way we're going to beat Dallas, we're going to beat the Eagles, and we're going to beat these teams that we're talking about who are top-notch that we're going to have to go against this year. And I'm very sure that the coaching staff is going to provide us with a game plan to get this done. So we need to score more points. I mean, it's just to me, we need big plays, man. Having just 20 big plays on the whole roster is just not it. 7 to 9 wins only because of how tough the schedule is moving forward this year, and how strong our division is at the top, and then the bottom is just like question marks as far as the eye could see. Who's even going to play quarterback for the Washington Commanders? It's tough. It's a tough thing, but we're heading and trending in the right direction. As long as all these free agent acquisitions come and provide us big play, then the Giants will be an issue.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Richie James thing because I was thinking about that as Charlie was giving his take on the wide receiver position, where it's the volume of the receivers. There's going to be a guy that's going to step up one game. And there was games where Richie James tore people apart. And then there was games he played, but he never even saw a pass.
Yeah.
Or he dropped every ball that went his way.
Well, he's the only receiver.
But it's the sheer volume that they have in that wide receiver room. Like Charlie was saying, I'll give him props to there because 100% true. I was thinking about that as Charlie was mentioning it to me as a rebuttal to what I was saying. And I, as well with what you were on the same take there with wide receivers, but he had a great rebuttal saying, wide receivers, the volume of it can change the games, and you guys have that volume there. So I'll give Charlie props there.
It's amazing how well y'all ran the ball last year to have those limited big plays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why you go take it a shot on Jalen Hyatt and
to give you that big playability.
You see if it works out. Yeah. It makes more sense.
But it just sucks. Richie James is not there anymore, and he's the only receiver on the roster that played 17 games.
That's true. But again, volume.
He single-handedly cost you a couple of games. It feels like
he did at punt returner. Yeah, but that's what we got.
It was too much dependence on that guy.
That's what we got. The kid from Oklahoma, though, Gray. He'll be returning kicks, I think, too. So
good. All right. Next team here, continuing NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles. For me, continuing that D-line trend and G-line trend and pass line.
Philadelphia, Georgia, baby.
Philadelphia, Georgia. Best position group, D-line pass rush. You got the middle, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis in year 2. You get the rookie Jalen Carter, and then you got Milton Williams. Have fun. Then you get the edge. I haven't even started the edge yet. Hassan Riddick, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith. First-round rookie, Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett they might be so full. Derek Barnett might not even make the team, just the way how stacked they are there in the middle or across that line. It's insane. So again, continuing the trend, this NFC East teams across the board, have fun running against them. Worst position group for me, I got to go safety. C.J. Gardner-Johnson departing to Detroit. That's a blow. Reed Blankenship, he was good filling the void for them when C.J. got hurt, went down. He was pretty decent. So I'll give him props there. But then you got Terrell Edmonds and Sidney Brown competing for the strong safety position. It's, they're not terrible, but again, this defense is stacked. So if there's a weak point, it's those safeties, and it's going to be the deep ball. It's going to be a communication issue between the corners and then these safeties, and maybe someone gets past them, and there's going to be a big play against them. That's where I think their weak point is going to be on these safeties, communication with the DB, with their corners, and just being young and maybe not fully ready. For me, needs to win the division is losing both their offense and defensive coordinator isn't that big of a blow to them because that's a big blow to a lot of teams. So we'll see how this plays out, but hopefully for them and Philly fans that it's just next man in. This team is just set to win. It doesn't matter who's really there as the coordinator, but there's that. Continuing on with that, the rule change with the whole RPO front pass thing, that's a big part of their game. So we'll see how that plays with RPOs on Philly and a legal forward pass thing. It's weird. We'll see. I don't think I even saw it called yet in the preseason. We'll see if it, how that plays out. But back to the coordinators thing. Sorry, is we saw it for the first year with Sirianni before he gave up play calling. That was a bad play calling coach team. Bad.
Yeah.
And if that's what they resort back to with Shane Steichen going to Indy, it's not pretty for them with the stacked team that they had still.
Well
So
said.
for me, the range is going to be as low as 8, but as high as 12, maybe 13. Where are you at on this, Charlie?
Super Bowl runner-ups. Um, yeah, I didn't even think about the coaching staff. I mean, I did immediately after the Super Bowl and through the offseason. I was like, man, that's going to be a major swing. Um, I went D-line. I'll start it off. I went D-line, favorite position group. You named them all. I'm looking forward to seeing Nolan Smith. He was my favorite guy when I would watch Georgia. Not a SEC fan, not a Georgia fan, but obviously they were in the limelight. When I would watch Georgia, Nolan Smith constantly popped out to me, whether it was dropping back in pass coverage or getting after the passer. So he's a guy, as you mentioned already, adding to a loaded defensive line, just similar to what we just talked about with Dallas. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Big.
The weak spot that it's tough. You're talking about, defending Super Bowl runner-ups. I went wide receiver / secondary. So I'm glad you brought up the secondary. And it's really just about the depth there. Obviously, you have two studs there. When you talk about A.J. Brown, you talk about Devonta Smith, the Slim Reaper. And then you look over on the other side of the ball, you're talking about two stud cornerbacks. Bradbury stepped his game up even further last year, and Darius Slay was an animal. But other than those guys, it's a lot of unproven, untested. There are some corners there that, Vontae Maddox that have gotten a lot of playing time, but it's, you bring up your Reed Blankenships, you drafted Sidney Brown out of Illinois, which I'm really high on. I really like the kid, but miscommunications, this new system, and a bugaboo for the Eagles was safety. It was a revelation to get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson last year. And that looked like it just buttoned up everything, and you could tell, and it benefited the corners having a ball hawking safety back there. I don't know if Reed Blankenship can provide that. I'm high on the safety coming over from Pittsburgh, but he's not that type of player. He's more of a down the box, stop the run type of player. So that area concerns me. The depth at wide receiver concerns me, and why I even bring up depth is if you recall back to last season, the Eagles were blessed to not have injuries. It was very similar to the way the Tampa Bay Buccaneers season went the previous season when they went to the Super Bowl, and they were very blessed to not have injuries as well. The depth was never really tested. The defensive line, obviously, for Philly can withstand that because we're rattling off name after name after name, and you're talking all the way back to third stringers. But other positional groups, if you miss some time here, it's going to be a big deal for these guys. That's what concerns me. So when I talk about Philly, it's about health. You brought over two injury-prone running backs, which are uber talented, but injury-prone. Depth at those key positions on the outside. And my biggest focus for Philly, can you change up the offense? Because you did what you did last year, and that was supreme, and no one could stop you doing it. Do I think you can come into this season and replicate the exact same thing? Dallas, we've already talked about, drafting Mozzie Smith to stop the middle and stuff like that. Like, teams are prepared for you this year. you're going to have to switch it up. There's going to be more on Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts had a really easy time of it, in my opinion, which is throw a streak to two very good wide receivers or throw a screen or a slant route. That's all he had to do last year. 1 to 2 reads, ball out quick, because you're a dominant run game. Do you replicate that system again? And does it work? And can you stay healthy? That's a big question mark for me. For them, I got them 8 to 12 wins because undeniably there's a lot of talent there. Just as much as we talked about the Cowboys. And they went further last year. The coaching staff flipping over. You brought up a great point about Sirianni, and I'll wrap it up with just that. So there's a little bit of a gap here with the Eagles to me. And we'll see how it plays out. What you got on them, Ed?
Yeah, people aren't going to believe us that we're doing this separate. Everybody's going to think we're sitting in the same room when we're doing this shit because we just keep on with the keeping on. But, look, if this is what the evidence brings and we all just keep calling a spade, I think that just proves some of us know what the fuck we're doing, I guess. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, 6 interceptions on the season. And that's what we're talking about at the safety position. That's my worst position. And it isn't even that it's the worst position. It's just a position for me, again, that is unproven now without the help of the man who literally completely changed everything. In 6 games, he had 6 interceptions or however many games it took for him to accumulate 6. And, they won all 6 of them. Now, you take those 6 wins away, or however many games it took for him to accumulate the 6, and it's like, okay, now how are we going to replace that? So somebody's going to need to step up. Can Sidney Brown do it? I'm not saying he can't, but it's not proven that he can. Best position is the D-line because it's the entire state of Georgia over there. How's it not? And look, for them to win and keep doing is literally I put what to do to win. Stay the fucking course. Just stay the course. Just keep banging. Go out there and play that blood sport you've been playing. Because, with the acquisitions of you picking up these rookies in the draft picks and then free agent little swipes here and there with some talent that you went and got, I think DeAndre Swift, if healthy out of Georgia, could really, really just end up pushing this team into the direction that, maybe they couldn't get last year. With that type of talent, Rashad Penny now not needing to be the main source could just come in and be a guy to go after it, a player too. And then you still have everyone there, Boston Scott, Gainwell. Okay, the potential for them is still there. The ceiling's still very high, very young team. I'm on some 10 to 13 with them. I think they win the division.
Yeah,
Yep.
the talent level is there, and you make a good point. If Miles Sanders was able to bring them to a certain point, putting a guy like Swift and teaming him up with Penny and what they've already got there, staying the course looks a lot brighter as long as those guys can stay healthy.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, because if Swift is just Swift pans out, the league's in trouble.
Yeah. We all everybody in the league has the Eagles very high, right? And we can tell how good they are no matter what position you look at. They're pretty much stacked. It's equivalent to having pocket aces in poker. The only way you're going down is if someone calls your all-in bluff on the flop, or not bluff, but the all-in call on the drop. And somehow they land something on the turn in the river to outpoint you there. But it's like sitting on pocket aces in poker is what you are with the Philadelphia Eagles. All you got to do is just not mess it up to win the hand.
Yeah.
Hey, that brings it back to the coaching situation that you mentioned right off rip. With Sirianni and then losing OC and DC. So
we could really be about to witness the fall of a regime by not taking the little things seriously on how important OCs and DCs are.
Yep.
Continuity's massive.
It's true. Final team here, though. NFC East. We're going Washington Commanders. Again, D-line. Interior, you got Jonathan Allen and Darren Payne. Combined, they had 34 tackles for losses. Again, hard team to run on. and then let's go outside. And if they can stay healthy outside between Montez Sweat and Chase Young, big scary dudes that can ruin games for people. 2020 Rookie of the Year with Chase Young. He wants to prove himself again, get back from those injuries, say he's still the man. He still can do it. He just got to stay healthy. Worst position group. I'll go the easy route out here. I'm sorry if you guys have it too, but I'm going QB.
Ah,
They got listed Sam Howell as the starting, Jacoby Brissett backup. With the way this offense is, your wide receivers are underrated. You got a very underrated wide receiver room. Your running backs can move the ball. You got a good running back room. All you're hoping for is that your QBs can safely move the ball and put points on the board, because that defense can keep teams low scoring. And that's where I bring needs to win the division is, again, QB can keep the ball safe, can move the ball, almost like a Geno Smith moment like last year. You just let them move the ball safely, you let the defense do their thing, and you stack up some wins. So it's hard for me to envision that. I'm sorry for Eric Benamy and Ron Rivera, but I got them as low as 4, but all the way up to possibly 10 double-digit wins there, because
wow.
if you can get that quarterback situation to play safe and smart football, that's still a pretty scary team. I know you got a tough division you got to work through, but they can beat a lot of teams.
Washington, not a pushover. Haven't been a pushover in years, but they've been missing that spark. And you're right. I'll start it on the weak side. I'll kind of echo your sentiments real quick with the QB, but I also had linebacker depth and tight end. A playmaker at tight end, Logan Thomas, has struggled to stay healthy over the past couple of years. Now, we took a lot of heat last year as a show about Washington. I do want to say the skill positions on offense are awesome. I didn't take them as my favorite group, but when you're talking about the wide receiver room, when you're talking about the running back depth that they have there, different guys that are very dynamic within this offense. But again, the weak spot, man, it comes back to the guy pulling the trigger. And we talked about Carson Wentz last year, and it's what do you get out of Sam Howell? The secondary was my favorite out of this group. Always been a big Fuller fan. Talking about the two safeties back there, Curl and Forrest, who have come a long way. An underrated tandem that remind me is similar to the tandem they have up there in Buffalo. Not the flashiest, very unsung, but very solid tandem back there. You drafted the guy that I liked the most out of Mississippi State. You got Forbes, playmaker. He's a very slight guy, but he's a ball hawk, makes plays. And you also got another one of my favorites, which was Jontavius Martin out of Illinois. Versatile guy, played corner and safety at Illinois, so he can do a little bit of both. And then the St. Juice kid had his moments last year as well. It was a former second or third round pick by y'all. So the secondary by far is my favorite. But there's talent on this Washington team. As Eddie mentioned back when we were doing our early off-season shows, you've moved on finally from Daniel Snyder. So this black cloud is finally going to be able to drift off and get some new ownership in here. There should be a lot better feelings within Washington in that stadium just all around, because the type of stuff he was accused of, that affects the building regardless. I don't got him as much of a range as you, Brady, but I've got him 4 to 8, because one thing is when I watch Washington play, like, they don't give the game away. It's just that lack of talent at the trigger position for me is what ends up doing them in the end. Can they get it? Does Bieniemy bring out the best? Obviously, there's been some off-season conflicts with what, people, maybe he's pushing people too hard and stuff like that. I think it's good for a team like this, especially where you're trying to get better and you're trying to get over the hump. But I got them to 4-8, 4 to 8 wins. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Washington Commanders here. They're not really commanding nothing. I hope that this new regime changes the name and gives us something better than
That's divisional rival. He's just talking trash.
the Commanders. Okay, because they're commanding the bench to be warm, because that's about it. D-line, best position. How the hell is it not? My most favorite position, though, if we're talking faves, is this running back group. How the hell do you not like it? You got this kid out of fucking Kentucky, dude, that just refuses to go down, okay?
Pretty good.
I mean, when I watched that Georgia game, he had a hole. It was a big hole. That hole closed up quick because it's Georgia. You feel me? But he still would not go down, and he ran really hard, man. I like this kid. And behind Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, who in their own right are just savages and need to be paid attention to when they're out there, could really end up helping out this position group that I think is potentially the worst. I think the QB position is the worst. And when I say worst, everybody just calm down. I don't mean like that, trashola. I just mean, look, Jacoby Brissett has been on some pretty good teams. We haven't yielded much out of him. Jake Fromm's bounced around on a couple teams, Bills, Giants. Here we are with the Commanders. Not gotten much out of him. Sam Howell just doesn't have that long of a life of a QB right now as a starter in the NFL or even college for that matter. So it's not that they don't have it. It's just that, well, to be honest, my glasses aren't thick enough and I just haven't seen it yet. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say that that's a position that needs to improve. And hopefully this year, potentially with the way the run game could be, they could end up having that. They still need more big play ability other than Terry McLaurin making the big play, because that's the only person on the squad that's making big plays, double digits, over 1,000 yards at receiving. I don't expect that to stop no matter who's throwing it to him. I look at him as, like a Mike Evans from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he's been on the team for 6 years and had 5 quarterbacks throw him touchdowns. I don't know. It's something along those lines to me for Terry McLaurin, which leads me to believe that he's a stud no matter what and where he goes. So he will be productive this year. I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about the rest of the offense producing to help out and bring that big play ability. It's almost like Washington and the Giants are the exact same team. They're just good enough to lose, and they're just not good enough to put up points. And I hope that changes this year for these guys. 6 to 8, because I respect Riverboat and Bieniemy, but I just don't see it with the quarterback room. 6 to 8, potentially.
Yep. Well said. I like it. Good take, gentlemen.
McLaurin is so underrated.
For sure.
You look at his list of quarterbacks, and he got no business receiving 1,000 yards each season, and he's just a beast.
Yeah, at least Mike Evans. We can trash talk Jameis Winston all you want, but that man threw and put up yards. There's no quarterback that was throwing and put up yards. It was pretty much just give it to Terry McLaurin somehow. Yeah. And I'll get you the yards.
Yeah, but he's had like 45 quarterbacks throw him the ball since he's been in the league too.
Yeah.
So.
But all right, next division, and I'm finally moving off D-line for a little bit. Going NFC North, going Chicago Bears first. For me, best position group, I'm going the linebackers.
Oh, very deep.
I understand Roquan Smith's, leaving. That sucks. Hate to see it. But picking up Tremaine Edmonds, his name says it all. That's almost an easy flip-flop, depending on how you want to look at it and the way they play. A little bit different, but he'll help that defense tremendously. Jack Sanborn looked real good in his improved role once Roquan Smith left. And then you still have TJ Edwards, had 159 tackles. He was 7th in the NFL for total tackles last year. So that linebacker group is good. It's behind a little bit of a bad D-line, so that's where those tackles come in for TJ Edmonds. So hopefully, maybe he doesn't have to have that many tackles, but he is still, he's still there. So that's I like the linebacker groups. Worst position group, I'm going QB. No, I'm just kidding, Charlie. I'm not doing that to you. No, I'm going pass rush. Sorry, everybody. I got to give Charlie a little shit here and there, but I'm going pass rush for worst position group. They only had 20 sacks last season. The rookie safety, Jaquan Brisker, led the team in sacks, so that's not pretty. You brought over DeMarcus Walker from the Titans, who had 7 sacks. Hopefully you can improve that, get into the 30 range at least. Give yourself some fire to work off of. But yeah, worst position group, pass rush. You got to get to the quarterback. You got to put pressure. Otherwise, your defense, even though you got good corners and decent safeties back there, they're going to get eaten alive against somebody who has all day to throw. So that's where it's going into. Needs to win the division, based off of that. that defensive head coach there, Matt Eberflus, get your defense playing right. That's your specialty, dude. You need to get that going. You have a dude like Fields who can make plays happen. So you just got to protect your side of the ball. But back to Fields, though, O-line's got to protect him and let him move the ball methodically. He doesn't need to be in scramble drill every play, every second of every down. It's crazy. Let's see what this man is actually worth. But for me, range as low as 6, but up to 11 based on how the potential of this defense, I think. So I'm going 6 to 11 for range. I like potential of the Bears, but I still don't see them as being super threat. It's just the potential I see them being able to get there in the almost 11 win category.
I like it. Very similar to what I had as far as the weakness goes. I'll start there. The pass rush has got to be better for them. They got into a lot of games where if they could get a defensive stop, it would have taken a lot of pressure off of what the offense was trying to do. Because if we think back to it, as bad as the passing game was, and we all identified that there wasn't a lot of receiving options for Justin Fields to do, their run game was stellar. If it wasn't Fields and the phenomenal rushing season that he had, Montgomery and Herbert were just grinding on people, but they couldn't stop it on the other side of the ball. So run defense, pass rush was last in sacks and last in QB pressures last year. So if you're not putting any pressure on the guy, it's going to lead to what Brady just said, which is having a field day back there and all the time in the world to throw the ball. There was some encouragement though, watching this first preseason game. Obviously, preseason, take it what you will. But Travis Gibson, personally, off the D line, 1 sack, 3 QB hits, and 8 quarterback pressures. I was watching the game, and it was almost every time the either Levis or Malik were dropping back. This kid was in their lap. You're talking about bringing over Ngakoue. You're talking about Dominique Robinson, a draft pick from last year, DeMarcus Walker, as you mentioned. So we'll see if this D line can improve, get after the quarterback, at least make it tougher for teams to score on them. So that was my weak point as well. And then on the strength, it's Justin Fields. They surrounded him with weapons. Nothing more needs to be said. This kid will take off this year, and the Bears will go as far as he takes off. And as long as he stays healthy and that offensive line, like you said, is able to take care of him a little bit, the sky's the limit for this kid. Obviously, personal big believer in him coming in, but the proof is in the pudding with the playmakers that they added. Talking about DJ Moore, I think that's just an A+ grab for them, and I think it's a sum of the parts for the offense. I don't think it's going to be any one particular thing, but I think it's going to allow Justin to be able to feel comfortable throwing the ball a lot more. And their draft pick on the offensive line looks like he's going to be a stud as well, based off of what I've seen in the preseason. So it's tough because I wanna springboard them, but I see got to temper the expectations of what these guys are going to be right now. I'm thinking 8 to 10 wins, right in that area. Can that vie for a title right there? Probably not, but I think they're going to make things interesting. I think Justin Fields is going to be in the MVP conversation for a lot of the season, and they're going to be a fun team to watch. It's not going to be a boring game when you're watching them this season. What you got?
The Bears. I got best position group Justin Fields. How the hell's it not? You know what I mean? They did everything they could from this year except my worst position group, which is the tight end position. The tight end position is actually what led the team in reception yards, 544, dismal at best. That's what your backup running back should be getting. And that's your leading receiver, which is Cole Clement, tight end position. I would have really liked to see the Chicago Bears go out in free agency and try and go get them a tight end who's a receiver and a go-getter of the ball. They did not. That's okay. It's fine. But I think that those are some of the things that on the Chicago Bears they're going to have to fix. The tight end position needs to be one of them. Also, the wide receiver position also needs to produce. You went out and you got a couple guys, and hopefully it works out. And I think it will, because I think that your wide receiver that you got, DJ Moore, from the Panthers, I think that's really going to just take a lot of pressure off the run game which now you got Deontay Foreman and a couple other guys who now are going to, the ball's going to be spread even. You're not going to know where to try and stop it, which in turn will this just then catapult Fields into doing so much better. But all these things have to mesh together. Justin Fields has to have the best season of his career, and the defense has to be a top 20, top 15 defense in order for them to even think about winning the division and making the playoffs. I got them a 7-9 because I just don't know if they have their identity yet. Are they going to just be a run team? Can they pass the ball? Is this offensive line ready for that? Who are they going to be? Is it just going to be the Justin Fields show again? If it is, then this is a team game and they're going to fail at that because that's just not going to work. And I don't care how good you are. It's a team sport. It's not one guy versus 11. And that's what it's been for this organization and this team. I think that if it can be a more well-rounded team, more passing, more rushing by people other than Fields, then I think this ends up working out because then Fields could be dynamic when he needs to and not because he has to. And then the whole thing changes. So for me, 7-9 wins. I think Chicago's trending in the right direction. I think this is going to be Fields' best year ever because he has the most around him than he's ever had prior. And I do like the offensive lineman that they ended up drafting in the first round. So good for them and good for the draft. Good for the trade they had. I think they did a really decent job. Now it's all on the shoulders of the team now.
Identity, saying identity, I think that's perfect when you're talking about the Bears. Finding their identity this season will be key moving forward for them because
For
I
sure.
think they are on the trend up.
Yep. All right. Next team here, Detroit Lions. Another one, a little bit of surprise last year, the way they, came out. But I'm going to go based off of just what last year they gave us and what was their most hyped group and should continue to be their most hyped group. And that's the O-line.
Yes.
They were ranked the best O-line in the NFL last year.
Get out of my
They showed
pocket,
why.
Brady.
They gave Josh, Jared Goff everything he needed. They helped make him look good. They made the running backs, whatever one they were letting go, play that day. They all looked good. They all took, had their turn going. It's a giant reason that offense was such a huge success last season. Frank Ragnow, top 3 center in the league. You got Penei Sewell, Pro Bowl tackle. Hapalulu Vaitai, however you say that man's name. He's a stud. Taylor Deckner, Jonah Jackson, Graham Glasgow. He filled in for Vaitai when he was hurt, but that dude's good too. So I gotta love that O-line group.
Yeah.
Worst position group. I'm gonna go tight ends here, and it's no knock on that rookie out of Iowa, Sam Laporta. It's just we haven't seen a transition yet into the NFL, so I can't say he's gonna be good and carry that team. But right now, there's no Hawkinson, and that's a huge impact, right? That's a safety net for most QBs. There's later on I have tight ends again as how important that tight end position can be, and right now the Lions just don't exactly have it. They got Brock Wright last year after Hawkinson left, and he was basically just an extra blocker, wasn't much. So yeah, that's worst position group right now until Sam Laporta proves himself. I got tight ends. Needs to win the division is a serious upgrade in defensive performance compared to last year. You added all these new pieces. Congrats. I want to see it pay off because we saw that this offense is capable of putting up points with the best of them and against the best of them, but that defense is holding them back.
Yep.
So based on the way this defense is, it's either going to be an 8-win team because that offense can score points, or it's going to be a 12-win team because this defense is going to let the offense outscore the other team. So I got them 8-12. I like where the direction these Lions are going. We got to see more out of that defense. Gotta. Where you at, Charlie?
Very well said. Very well said. I'm glad you went tight ends and broke it down how you did because you think about the best team last year. They got a pretty good tight end, Travis Kelce. And you're right.
Mm-hmm.
That
And
is
the
the
other side of the
safety
ball,
blanket.
Dallas Goedert.
Yeah. Safety blanket's a guy you can count on to be in a certain position. And Hawkinson was a big let go for them. For me, I went coaching and culture. That's my favorite thing about the
Love it.
Detroit Lions.
Well said.
Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, the OC, Aaron Glenn, the DC. You got guys like Deuce Staley, Randall L., Anthony Lynn, former Chargers coach. It's a great compilation of young, talented, motivated individuals. And you see it, if you watched any of the Hard Knocks last year, you can see the passion of these guys pouring out in each individual position group, not just out of the head coach. I mean, just all the way down to the position groups. These guys care legitly, not about the results of the football game, but about these players individually. And that's not something you see every day. And that's my favorite thing to see out of the Lions. And I think it's a big reason why they made that big turn and are very optimistic this season. The weak spot for me is depth across the board. They have brought on a wonderful draft class. They went out in free agency and addressed a lot of holes in the defensive secondary. Again, they've drafted very well last year with Hayden Hutchinson, the Rodriguez kid at linebacker. They've been hitting, but depth concerns me across the board. I don't care what position you look at, even down to the quarterback position. So that's a little scary for me. What do they got to do to win the division? It's pretty simple for me. It's replace the production of Williams and Smith last year. 24 total touchdowns between those two, and those are two running backs. Okay, as good as Jared Goff was, as good as the offensive line was, it was those running backs that just continued to cash in. Can you replace that with David Montgomery, which is a comparably even back to Williams, but a richer injury history, probably less tread on the tires, and then you draft the kid Gibbs out of Alabama. Uber talented kid. We got to see a little bit of him in the first preseason game. The talent's there. But can you get the production? Because you talk about 24 total touchdowns. Williams led the league in scoring touchdowns on the ground last year. Always been a fan of his, but those are astronomical numbers when you're talking about a running back that's not even really your starter day one. So can you replace that? Because if you can control the ground game like that, and get that type of production, it allows Jared Goff to have that type of season, like you said, to where he's a capable quarterback. If he is left standing and can make quick reads and knows where he's going with the football, Jared Goff's a good enough guy to get you there. We saw him with the Rams. He led them, one step away from winning it all. So at the end of the day, that depth's going to get tested. I got him anywhere as low as 7 wins, anywhere as high as 12 wins, because the talent level there, they're doing the right things there in Detroit. It's similar to what the Bears are doing. They're doing it in a different way than the Bears. And it's tangible. You can feel the buzz within that organization. And again, I think it radiates from the leadership in that organization. So 7 to 12 wins for the Lions. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm just going to basically recite what you two guys have said. The O-line is absolutely what stood out the best for me because, they only have 1,000-yard receiver, which is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's just an absolute stud. And I just think that there's no other production coming out of that wide receiver group, and it's only possible because of that offensive line. And to not be able to replace the amount of touchdowns that Williams had and 1,000 yards rushing. He had 17 touchdowns. He had 1,000 yards rushing. Okay, and I mean, 262 carries, and DeAndre Swift with 99 and 5 touchdowns. That's huge. That's basically your entire offense. And it's not there anymore, except Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's the only one who's there. So O-line was the best. Worst for me, again, this is one of those things. It's a touchy situation. It's not worst. It's not the worst, okay? Because like Charlie said, the talent is in abundance, right? It's can you produce what we at least had prior, which is 22 touchdowns. I mean, to think that you're just going to get 22 touchdowns out of Jamari Gibbs, I think, and have him rush for 1,000 yards, because where's DeAndre Swift? Where's that? Where are you replacing that? So if these guys can stay healthy, Jamari Gibbs he has to get at least 900 yards and 15 touchdowns, because if he doesn't do that, the team is immediately a one-dimensional team, and all you got to do is double Amon-Ra because you don't have a tight end that's proven that you're scared of, and no other receiver has stood up since then. And I mean, it's just like it's vital to the success of this offense and how this offense was putting up numbers. They're going to have to replace that. That's a must in order for them to be successful. I'm going 8-11 on it. And
Jameson Williams is going to have to be a hitter this year. He's going to have to hit for them.
yeah,
The wide receiver out of Bama from
yeah.
last year.
And I mean, I don't know, against the Giants, I expected him to just run by Hawkins, and I didn't see it. The DB out of Old Dom 6-rounder. But the culture is just so amazing. The air is electric over there, and I think that coaching staff will get it done. And I think that the electric and what the team already has on roster, plus Montgomery, plus the new acquisitions, and I mean the first 4 picks that they got for in the draft is just crazy. Branch and everybody. I mean they did good. They did well. I think it's only gonna get even crazier because with Branch back there, C.J. Gardner-Johnson back there, accumulating all these opportunities now for the offense to go back out there and try and grind it out. I think potentially they could not miss a beat, end up winning the division again, and it just keep going. I mean, I could see it happening, but we haven't seen it, so it's time to prove it. Let's go, Detroit.
All right, continuing on, gentlemen. Green Bay Packers, best position group for me. I'm just going, just personal love here. I'm going running backs. I just love this duo. I know you got no A-Rod this year. You got a new offense. Whatever. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, they play well off each other. They complement each other. When one's cooking, the other one lets him cook. He's not trying to fight and take away anything. They're both really good. They both can change games when they're hot, and it just takes, and it's going to help with Jordan Love needing something like these guys to make his good day a little bit easier. And they've both had their little bit of contractual issues fighting it, but again, at the end of the day, these dudes put their head down, they go to work, and they prove themselves to be, a really great tandem. So I went best position group running backs here just because I really like the way these guys play. So that was my take on them. Worst position group here, like I said, previously, is tight ends. There's no real threat here, and I think it's vital safety net. I just expressed it with the Detroit Lions. You got a new, inexperienced QB. The safety net would be huge. You got the rookies, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, again, need to prove themselves. Nothing special. Josiah Degura, kind of developing something with Love apparently here in the offseason and preseason, they're saying. But again, I think the tight end position is huge, and there's nothing that jumps off the page right now that screams, I got to watch out for this. So that's where I went worst position group here, because if it doesn't work out, it's only going to hurt Love. Needs to win the division is Matt LaFleur proves he is a good coach, and it wasn't just Aaron Rodgers all these years. All right? Let's be honest here. That's the elephant in the room. Aaron Rodgers was there. He went through other coaches and still became, still MVP caliber quarterback. What is Matt LaFleur like without Aaron Rodgers? Continuing with that, is the fear of Green Bay is still real facing everybody else in the division. You mentally beat them just because you are Green Bay. Whether you're facing Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota,
Absolutely right.
they make mistakes because they're playing you, and that's how you're going to get some wins from them and maybe steal the division here. But again, if Jordan Love doesn't play well, there's nothing, no good communication, compatibility here, whatever it is, between his pass catchers and him. They can be as low as 6 wins, but if Matt LaFleur is a good coach, they can get up there to the 11-win range. I hate doing all these big ranges for you guys here on the show, but there's a lot of question marks here on the NFC side of the ball. So
No doubt.
I got 6-11 here with the Green Bay Packers.
Well, we are gonna narrow it down. It's just not this show.
Yeah.
That's something I never even thought of, but the ghost of the Packers haunting these teams because they have outright dominated them. Now, I like that you brought that up. That's a very good point. You going with the running backs? couples in with my favorite group, and that's the O-line. There's a lot of stability there. There's a lot of depth there. You talk about Josh Myers, um, Zach Tom, Bakhtiari, of course, Sean Ryan, second year out of UCLA. Um, I like that group, and that group was well trusted by Mr. Aaron Rodgers. And I think they're going to be very serviceable to Jordan Love. Watching them in the first preseason game, I was very taken by the offense. There was not vanilla at all, and you can see that Green Bay's not going to be falling off the map, similar to a Pittsburgh Steelers team.
Mm.
They're not going to go away, and I think you're right. It's going to be tough for the rest of this division to just go ahead and leapfrog them just because Aaron Rodgers walked out the door. For me, on the weak side of things, I looked at the wide receivers. I like them a lot, like talent wise, with Dobbs and Watkins, and I like the kid out of Virginia Tech, Wicks, that they drafted this past year. So I settled on the secondary. Rasul Douglas, Alexander, the the safety tandem does not excite me. Stokes coming off the injury, which I like Eric Stokes a lot, but that's a rough one to bounce back from. I think he's still on the pup list, but I'm sure he'll be back soon. But the secondary is a weak spot for me. What do the Packers got to do to win the division? I think this is a situation to where take care of Jordan Love, use your favorites, which are the running backs, use this offensive line, ball control offense, make those splash plays because we saw with Watkins, all he has to do is catch 3 passes. 2 of them can be for 60-yard touchdowns very easily. Keep those guys healthy, though, and they could end up winning this division despite all the love that we have for Chicago and Detroit. They very well could end up at the end of the day winning the division. I got them 6-10. I don't think there's a dominant team in this division, but there's going to be a good one. There's going to be a good team that comes out of here. Just don't know who it is yet. So that's a wait and see approach here for a little bit. So that's what I got them, 6-10 wins. How are you looking at them, Ed?
Green Bay Packers. Go Cheeseheads. I got best position linebacker. How do you not? These 4 names are just popping off the page, and I loved Quay coming out to begin with as a rookie last year. And even in the dirt, with his hand in the dirt, Devontae Wyatt was another one that jumped off. But I'm going linebacker, Preston Smith, Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker, Rashawn Gary. Worst position. And again, it's not that I'm saying it's the worst, okay? Wisconsin, I like your cheese. It's pretty good. Not saying it's bad. But the QB position is definitely, you sat there long enough, pal. You sat there long enough, pal. You can't come out and have an excuse, pal, because you got to sit longer than anybody. Keys to winning. What do we got to do to win? Jordan Love will have to have a perfect season come to form for them to win a division and make the playoffs. 5-8. I got them on 5-8. And just to touch on your guys is saying that, potentially they could pull one out and steal one. They couldn't pull one out and steal one last year, 8-9 with Aaron Rodgers. Couldn't be better than Detroit last year and couldn't be better with Minnesota. But you know what, though? To play on to your little play there, maybe they could steal. Because you're very right. They still are the Green Bay Packers, and that defense is still there. And maybe teams like Minnesota and Detroit will sleep because it's not Rodgers, and they could steal one out. Because Love is a quality guy, and he sat there long enough. And now let's just see. The proof is in the pudding, folks. We got to see. We got to see. And how do we see people? Time will tell. Time will tell. Yeah. Right around the corner. We're going to find out if Love's got the love or not. We're going to find out.
People were having this same conversation when Aaron Rodgers turned to stepping up behind Brett Favre. So we'll see. Does history repeat itself? That's the question.
I like that you poured that cold, wet truth about last season, which was, they couldn't just win on the brand last season. Nope. So that does balance it back out. But to your point, maybe they do underestimate Jordan Love a little bit. No, like I said, the offense first game of the season, the backup, the rookie Clifford, threw for 200 plus yards, led them on 4 touchdown drives against Cincinnati Bengals, which are not too far off from being in the Super Bowl themselves.
Hmm.
So preseason again, but that's impressive.
Yeah.
They put up some points. They looked good.
All right. Final team here, NFC North. You got the Minnesota Vikings. And what can you say? Best position group, anything other than wide receivers? You can have fun with it. Honorable mention the kicker there, Greg Joseph, ice in his veins. Let's be honest here. It's the wide receivers.
Nobody better do that.
You got Justin Jefferson, all right. Behind him, they added Jordan Addison. As long as he can keep his driving speed under control, and whether you want to take that dog story seriously here and there, I'll say it,
Hanging out
whatever it
with Eddie
is,
too much.
But you know, stay safe, keep your dog healthy, don't be crazy. You're a top-notch dude. You're playing opposite side of Justin Jefferson. You'll get some good balls thrown your way, and you'll be able to score some touchdowns. And then behind those guys, you still got KJ Osborne, who looked real solid last year filling in. I know Charlie stole some fantasy games picking him up mid-season.
I
And then you
mentioned him
still
in the preseason too.
you did, and then they still got Jalen Rager. Yeah, he isn't flashy as he was supposed to be, like the first round pick, but again, he's still got the speed. They can find ways to get him the ball in the open. He's going to get those yards. So that wide receiver group is scary. Worst position group here. I hate to do it. I got to. I'm going QB, and it's just because Kirk doesn't win the games that matter. You saw it versus the Giants in the playoffs. You see his primetime numbers are atrocious. He's got to win those games. If you want to be the team that wins the division, you want to be the team that makes a playoff push, it's on the QB in the spotlight. And he's got to be that guy. And he hasn't shown yet that he's that guy. So, again, needs to win the division, Kirk Cousins. And then none of the division rivals actually improve like they're expected to, because this could be Minnesota's for the taking. I know Lions took it, but if the Vikings continue on the path that they are, and everybody else kind of just settles back because they're not living up to the hype that they can have, then the Vikings can win this division. I have them at like 9, potentially up to 13 wins.
Vikings are a conundrum for me. They really are, because offensively, it feels like they're looking more and more like O'Connell did with the Rams. They're the very potent passing attack, creativeness, big plays, but very finesse. And then you're minusing Dalvin Cook. I took the wide receiver room too, so I won't ramble through all the names as my strong point, because the talent is there. When you talk about Jefferson, Osborne, and then bringing in Addison as well, adding that's a dangerous route running combination at all levels of the field, and I think they'll be utilized very nicely. The weak spot for me, I settled on the secondary, and I settled on the secondary because I don't feel like they really did enough. They brought over Byron Murphy, which I was a fan of in Arizona, and he was a number one in Arizona, but had a very tough year last year, also coming off an injury. And then you got your first round draft pick from last year, Seen out of Georgia. I believe it was broke his leg. He missed the entire season off of that as well. But an athletic, rangy hitter, big time hitter. Obviously, you got Harrison back there, stalwart, but he's getting up there in age. I just don't like the overall secondary. What do they need to do to win? It's tough, because you hit the nail on the head with just calling out Cousins as being the weak spot, and I don't think you're far from the truth there. But can you beat the teams that are good? Because last year, when they came up against teams that were good and they made the playoffs, they got absolutely flattened. Absolutely flattened. Whether you're talking about the Dallas game where they just got smashed, whether you talk about the Philly game when they got absolutely smashed. And even in the playoffs, you host the Giants, who offensively had been pretty inept all year, including Daniel Jones, although he had a good year. I'm not talking about the Giants, though, but they looked smooth, fluid, and did whatever they want to, whether it was on the ground or through the air against you. can you turn around that whole defensive unit and culture? Because you did bring on a couple of pieces, but I don't feel like it's enough. I think it's going to be a tough year for the Vikings. I really do. I'm going 5 to 7 wins here. I think they're going to be falling back in the division, considering everything that's trending up in the division. I don't feel like they got better. You minus Dalvin Cook, you can't tell me that you're going to be better off for that because he was a major part of your success last year. And I like Alexander Madison, but that is a huge pair of shoes to fill. How about you, Ed?
Yeah,
What you
I
got?
mean, I got the Minnesota Vikings best position group for me. Could have went wide receiver easily here, but I just went on the defensive side of the ball. Took a look at the linebacking position: Danielle Hunter, Hicks, Davenport. To me, these are guys who are going to make big plays, and they're going to shore up a lot of the other problems because of it. You know, they're going to make those plays. They're going to stop things from getting behind them. And, you know, they're going to make Byron Murphy and Evans' day a little bit easier. Harrison Smith's getting old. But the thing here for me is what do they need to do to win? Well, we've proven before that we can't win alone with just Kirk Cousins, right? Kirk can't just do it himself. Okay, they need to be well balanced. And the only way they can be well balanced in doing this is if Alexander Madison has 1,100-yard season, okay, and he averages 7.1 yards a game. Okay, and you know he starts getting touchdowns. You know, I mean, because he got 5 touchdowns last year, played 17 games, and you know he touched the ball 74 times for 283 yards. Can you touch the ball 264 times? Do you think you can make it? You think you can touch the ball 264 times? They're counting on him to touch the balls that many times. They're counting on it. You know what I mean? And I mean, he only had 3.8 yards a carry. 15 yards was his longest run. Man, you're just asking him to do so much, and it stinks that you're putting all that on his shoulders because behind him, who do you really have behind him that's gonna wow you? Or you know what I mean? It's like you just immediately gave away your depth. So you got Madison, you got Chandler, North Carolina, second-year guy, McBride, Kene Nwangu, Abram Smith, CJ Ham trying to get some blocks. I don't know, man. It's tough, and I think we're going to see when these teams keep doing these things, how we talk about the running backs and how the running back position is being devalued and how all these conspiracies are going on right now. And we got, you know, the Indianapolis Colts. He's talking out of the side of his neck that if Jonathan Taylor is gone tomorrow, nobody would skip a beat. You know, I think you're being dangerous here when you start doing stuff like that because this is the NFL, man. And once people know that you're capable of doing one thing, that's the one thing they go after and stop, and they make you try and beat them somewhere else. 7 to 10 wins on Minnesota. I just don't know. I just don't know if the coaching staff and this roster is going to be able to provide what Dalvin Cook provided, being that he's, you know, a fifth in rushing last year. I don't know how you just try and go ahead and just replace that. Like 1,173 yards don't even matter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's crazy for me. Alexander Madison. I mean, and Cook played 17 games last year. Just so we're clear, men, he played all 17 games, shoulders hurting or not.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Head scratcher.
But all right, we're ready to continue on.
Guess the money was more important. Arizona.
Yeah. All right, let's go next division here. You know, might be the craziest division, and it hates for me to say this, but it's not going to be for good reasons. The NFC South. Atlanta Falcons. You know, potential. They're trying to add a bunch of names here, doing their thing. Best position group for me for Atlanta Falcons. I'm going the running back room, and that includes Cordell Patterson. You know, you obviously picked up B.J. Robinson, who's huge. You got Tyler Algier, who's splashed, you know, heavily. And then, obviously, Cordell Patterson is who he is. So, and this is all behind one of the biggest run-heavy teams in the NFL. So, you got to love that running back room and the direction they're heading as long as they can get it there, because that brings me to my worst position group, and that's the QB. And Ritter gave us little to nothing to win anyone over last season in his limited role filling in behind Mariota. He needs to be a threat in the pass, or teams are just going to stack the box against this team, and you're not going to be able to run the ball with these guys. So again, my best position group running backs, worst position group QB, and that can easily make it as just the offense as the whole worst position group if this QB situation doesn't pose a threat to get people to play on their heels, because that's my need to win division. Is Ritter can get the pass game going to where defenses play on their heels and open up for these running backs to get their room to get to going. I have them anywhere from 5 to 9 wins. It's going to be on the back of creative run play calling, because they're not going to be too creative in the pass. Unfortunately, hate to say it, Atlanta. You guys are stacked team for the most part. That offensive line's good. Coming to run when it comes to run, you need the QB to step up. I'm going 5-9 wins.
Honestly, you read my paper. I'll just add, I took the running backs as being my favorite as well. I'll just add what the running backs were able to do last year. 1,700 yards combined rushing between Algier and Patterson, 10 touchdowns on the ground. They added 40 catches, 250 yards, and a touchdown receiving. And then you tell me you're going to put the most complete back in the draft, and you're going to add that to the unit. Oh, by the way, he's a very good route runner and pass catcher, and Bijan Robinson. So yeah, no doubt, running back room my favorite. Weakest position I went quarterback too, and it's weak because it needs to be proven. There's weapons. We talk about that run game. It's going to be predicated. The offense is going to be predicated on the run. Can the QBs deliver? Whether it's Ritter, whether it's Heineke, can you get the ball to Drake London, who's a stud? Can Kyle Pitts be taken advantage of finally for the talent that he has, and couple that with the running game? I don't know. So that leads me into what they need to do to win the division. They've improved the defense. They spent money. They went out and got very key pieces to add to that secondary, add to the defensive line through the draft. So Atlanta is set up quite nicely, but similar to how we talk about Washington, I feel like Atlanta kind of mirrors that situation. I've got them the same as you. I think at 5 to 9 wins. There is the possibility of the higher side of things because I love the talent. I respect the coaching staff, and I think they're doing things the right way. But how far can the quarterback take? How about you?
Yeah, I'm going wide receiver. I'm going wide receiver, the best position group for me. I like JJ
Change it
Artega.
up. I like it.
Huh?
I said change it up. I like it. Sorry to cut you.
JJ Artega Whiteside. I like Mac Hollins coming over from the Raiders. I think Drake London's just gonna go out there and keep doing his thing. And it's just right when you were like, I'm going to stop these big body receivers, Mac Hollins and Drake London all game. They put out little baby tiny itty bitty Scotty Miller 5'9" out there and have him out there running in the slot for you to try and stop. Worst position for me is the safeties. The safety position is the group that I think needs most improvement. You add Jesse Bates, I get it. It's because you had to. You don't add Jesse Bates. Jalen Hawkins is your oldest guy at 25 on the roster. Everybody else is rookies. I just think it's an unproven group. Yes, Jesse Bates coming over from the Cincinnati Bengals is going to help out well. What does Atlanta have to do to win? I think they'll have to be consistent on both sides of the ball. And I think obviously the QB position is the most important. In this sport that they play anyway, not in all sports, but obviously in this sport, I would say one of the most important positions is quarterback, and that's where the most of the consistency will need to come from. Yes, they have some nice running backs. They have a decent defense that's going to try and stop you guys from scoring. But in the end of it all, the quarterback position is what's going to need to happen, and it's going to have to be a team effort in order for them to end up winning the division. And they have to score more points too. It's just something that has to be. I got them 5 to 8 win team, guys.
Pretty much same across the board.
Yeah.
But yeah, what Charlie was saying with Arthur Smith, I almost want to go back to our clips. What was it 3 years ago when Arthur Smith, the head coach, came over for Atlanta, and I said, "Watch, Cordell Patterson's going to be a menace because he's basically just Derrick Henry." You know,
Yeah.
he's not as strong as Derrick Henry, but he's got the build like him. He's what 6'8", 260 or something like that. So hard guy, and he's quick. So
Big dude, yeah. 6'4" or something like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously I'm exaggerating here a little bit, but again, big body dude, and you're giving him the ball to run. Those guys are never fun to tackle as a running back, and you utilize him so well with a smart play caller like Arthur Smith, who knows how to use those guys. He had years of experience, piggybacking off Derrick Henry, and then you hand him Cordero Patterson, and he's done
No
nothing
doubt.
but continue with it. And now we're going to add Bijan
No
Robinson.
doubt.
It's a
Yeah.
scary room for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah, that
But
offensive line is well built as well.
that's true. Yep. Yep. All right. Continuing on. Carolina Panthers. Potential to be scary too. Potential to flop again. Unfortunately, I have to say it. But again, NFC South is up for grabs. Any team here ready to pounce. Carolina Panthers. Panthers like to pounce. Best position group here. Going linebackers. Shaq Thompson is a beast. He's a problem every Sunday. Frankie Louvu, underrated, and he's getting better every year. And then you still got guys like Kamu, Gruber Hill, Brandon Smith, and Aaron Mosby, all good dudes. I like that linebacker room, and it's hard to go over the middle against these kind of guys. Worst position group here. This one is because I don't think it's the worst position group on the team, but I think it's the worst position group because it's the potential to hurt the team the most. And I'm going O-line. Your best guy, Austin Corbett, is still healing from injury. He's going to miss part of this season. And if they don't play well, Bryce Young won't get to show whether he is good or not. And it's going to fall in the back of this offensive line. So needs to win the division. Is the QB Bryce Young needs to play like he's not young. Wide receivers need to play like they're not old. Unfortunately, they have a little bit of an older wide receiver room. And again, this O line needs to play strong. Only thing to add to that is Frank Wright coming over needs to show that he is better than what he gave us in Indy. He had everything he wanted in Indy. They tried giving him all his tools. They tried bringing his whole tool set over there. It didn't quite work out. So we'll see if he can do it here in Carolina. I'm not sure. I got them 3-7, potentially 9 if everything clicks, but more like 3-7 range.
Yeah. It's tough because Carolina was a team that I really saw a lot of potential in last season. I'm not a fan of this Carolina team. I went weak spot defensive line, which might be surprising considering you got Brian Burns, who's a beast, and Derek Brown down there at D tackle. But the overall
Nothing else.
depth and everything else they have, I think they're going to have trouble stopping the run. And it's a unit that, as you look down the depth chart, is unproven, undrafted, and definitely going to have to step up. On the strong side of things, it's it, it's a double sided coin for me because I feel like the scheme and the philosophy that Frank Wright's going to bring over is going to be very user friendly to Bryce Young, which is something that is going to help in his development on one hand. The other side of that coin is like you mentioned with the Colts, the lack of downfield attack in this scheme worries me. And there's not a take the top off wide receiver on this unit. So I feel like Frank is going to have to dial up to Bryce Young's strengths and try to find some deeper stretch the field type of situations for Bryce to be successful and for them to kind of hang in games. I think it's going to be a very rough year for Carolina. I've got them three. I had them 3-5. I went ahead and bumped it up to 3-6 because I'm trying to be optimistic for them. I think this is going to be a rough year for them, and it starts with the leadership there. It's a young team, and is he the right fit for this team? They've been struggling trying to find that fit with Matt Rule ever since Ron Rivera left. We'll see if this is the right situation for Frank Wright. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Panthers' best position group here, and I easily could have probably said defensive backs here with J.C. Horn, Dante Jackson, Von Bell, Xavier Woods. I just didn't really like how much depth they have behind that. So I ended up going linebacker here, because the linebackers, you got a lot of depth here. You got Burns, Thomas, Houston. Uh, then you have Gruger Hill, Deion Jones, Brandon Smith drafted the year before from Penn State. Um, Gross Matos. I mean, you just got so much depth at linebacker. For me, I had to go the linebacker position. Worst position. We're going to head over to the offensive side of the ball. Could have easily went quarterback here, but you got Andy Dalton, so you got some strength there. You got some wisdom. You got some ability to teach the squad and to help elevate your quarterback room there. I could have went Miles Sanders and this unproven running back group, considering they're pretty hardcore runner. Deontay Foreman now is gone and on another team, but I didn't. I ended up going tight end position here. You got Hayden Hurst coming over from the Cincinnati Bengals, had a decent year, and then you got the same. I think Ian Thomas is new on the squad, and Tommy Tremmell's still there with not much production out of him. So I would like to see the tight end group help out their nice new young quarterback group and try and help them guys out. What are we going to do to try to win here, to even try and make the playoffs? I mean, honestly, I just think this team is such a young team. I think they need to try and find out their identity and see what even works for them before you can even try and think about what we're going to do and try to win the playoffs, win a division, and try and win the Super Bowl. I got them tagged in it at 5 to 8 wins just because, I just don't know if they're going to be able to get everything together in just, a couple of weeks to get ready for this season and put it all together on paper and be predominant and productive all season long. I think this is going to end up being a second half of the year team, and maybe we'll start seeing some growth next year. I don't know what we're going to end up getting this year. 5 to 8 wins, guys.
Yep. All right, that's Carolina. Let's go New Orleans Saints, gentlemen. Best position group for me. I'm just running backs. I know Alvin Kamara's got his little bit of a trouble going on. Let the man stay out of trouble. He can produce with the best of them. You added Jamal Williams and Kendra Miller this year. Two good guys come in, help. And then you got Eno Benjamin waiting his turn behind them. This running back group is, potentially can be really scary and hurt teams, and just almost a Atlanta Falcons, situation where they can control the pace of the game just themselves. Next, I'm going worst position group. I'm going to go D tackle, just kind of like that front middle section, because they're starting over this season. They were worse in the league last year, so Kalen Saunders, Nathan Shepard were added. You take in Brian Breesy, drafted in the first round. It's whole new pieces. You got to find a rhythm there. It's going to take some time. You don't know if they're all going to click right away. If they click at all, it's going to take a little bit. So it might be scary for them to stop the run. This might be a team that you just run the ball all day long. Not going to be an exciting game until those corners creep up and try stopping the run, and then you're going to get a deep pass over the top. So I'm a little worried for this New Orleans defense, especially considering this head coach Dennis Allen being the defensive guy. Jumping into my needs to win the division. He's got to prove himself that he's not a year two hot seat guy. He's the division guy. He needs to let this defense. They were pretty good last year. He needs to continue it, even though this whole D tackle situation is being rebuilt. And then with that, the offense has failed to find a rhythm since Breeze left. If there's anything there where they can develop some sort of rhythm behind Derek Carr, I can see this range going as high as 10 potentially, but more likely 5 to 8 category.
Tough on the Saints.
Yeah.
I'm on the flip side as you. I'm very high on the Saints this year. I took my favorite as the quarterback room, and that might come as a little bit of surprise. There's a lot of talent all over this roster when you really take a look at it, from wide receivers, the stuff they still have in the front seven with Jordan, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Warner, who showed out last year. But I went quarterback room. I think Derek Carr is a perfect fit in this situation. And couple that, they brought over John Gruden as a consultant to the team as well. This is pretty much a mirror image of the offense he was running under Gruden, so he understands this offense very, very well. I think he's going to excel here. I think this is a great fit for Carr. I've always liked him. I thought he had a bad shake of things last year because all he had was Devontae Adams to throw to. Obviously, Matt Collins kind of stepped into the wide receiver two role for them. It was a nice revelation, but Renthro was gone, Waller was gone the whole season, and it was really just Devontae Adams, which those two had a wonderful season together. But looking for a consistent playmaker on the other side of the field for Derek Carr, there wasn't one there. You're telling me you're bringing him over and you're sticking him with that slew of running backs that you just mentioned behind a very good offensive line, and then you're trotting out Chris Olave, who is a stud at wide receiver, Michael Thomas, who's again coming off an injury, but the games he played last year, finally, he looked like the same Michael Thomas those first 3 weeks of the season. Nice depth behind there. We talk about Shaheed. He came on, made plays for them. Very good depth there. Very good depth at wide receiver. The weak spot for me, it comes down to just kind of what I had touched on, which is health and the age of the team. You talk about Derek Carr, you talk about Michael Thomas, you talk about Tyrann Mathieu, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis. These guys are older. Um, can they stay healthy? If this team can stay healthy, they're a sleeper to win the NFC for me. 9 to 13 wins is what I got them at, especially considering the division that they're playing in. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, I got Saints looking at best position for me was easily could have been the offensive line here. This squad has really, really good offensive line here. I think that's a lot of their success in the trenches on both sides of the ball. But I went with quarterback here because Carr is just a difference maker. And I think that on this team, potentially, if he has a really good season this year and a top 15 defense, that'll be the keys to success. That'll be what they need to win. Position I think is the worst, potentially not even the worst, but one I don't like is the tight end room. Jawan Johnson, Taysom Hill, Foster Monroe, and Jimmy Graham. To me, is just not much production there. Even you think that them having Taysom Hill in that position, you got some yards here, there, and everywhere, but you can't eat off that every day. And he's just not accumulating yards at the position, and the position itself isn't really accumulating much either. I got them 7-10 because I think potentially it might take them a season to get Carr going, maybe a season or two. So I don't know that this year they're going to start off really hot. It might be one of those situations where they start off a little cold, maybe finish strong, or finish stronger than they started 7-10. I don't know. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, I mean, potential's there, but it was hard based off of what what they gave us last year. Me being at the Bucks games and the game the Saints came over to the Bucks Stadium. I think the Bucks won that game. I can't remember entirely, but I just remember every Saints fan I ran into was like, "Man, I can't wait to get rid of Dennis Allen." He was like 7 games into the season. They're already like, "Let's get rid of this guy." I know fan bases are they're always like that. If things aren't going smooth right away, they're like, come on, move. We got to get the ball rolling. We can't have this. So that's just the take of it based on what I've seen. So. Again, potential's there. They got a tough team, but again, a little bit aging team like Charlie mentioned. So we'll see how they play out.
I think as far as a win now roster though, like if you look at the Saints, the Saints to me is the first team since we got off the NFC East that literally I look around every position and there's really not a quote unquote weak spot there. There might be a little,
Mm-hmm.
unproven or something, but like I look at it and I'm like, man,
Yeah,
because you look at the NFC and it's like there's no real dominant team there. There's some
that's
good
true.
ones. You know what I mean? So why can't
Yeah,
the Saints win in that division?
that's kind of how the Saints have been though their
Yeah,
entire life. The issue is I brought it up was no rhythm since Breeze. You got to find a rhythm. Maybe Derek
yeah.
Carr, like you guys mentioned, is going to be that answer. He's going to get that offensive rhythm. We'll see. Well, let's move on for the final team here, NFC South, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. best what position group, easy out for me, and going wide receivers. You got the duo of Evans and Godwin. They were one of if not the most feared duo when you had Brady. I know you don't got Brady now, but they're still a very fearful duo that you have to worry about in the pass game because they're gonna find a way to get open. You just need a quarterback to get them the ball. And then behind them, you got Russell Gage. Trey Palmer has looked really nice in practice and preseason. You still
Speedster.
got David Moore and Devin Tompkins, good speed guy again with Trey Palmer. He's doing kick return, punt return. So we'll see how that plays out. That wide receiver room can be pretty scary. But going into the worst position group, hand in hand, it's got to be quarterback. Only because there's no still set starter. Mayfield has the potential to play games really well. Most of them he plays on the bad side. It's hard to see. For me, as like a long-term Bucks fan and just seeing where we're at, I want Trask. We'll see how it goes. Mayfield looked good preseason game 1. Trask is going to get the start preseason game 2. We'll see how he plays. Mayfield outplayed him preseason game 1, but kind of a different set of group of guys. We'll see how this goes. But again, at the end of the day, neither one of them is significantly scary to you. Just coming out in the field and preparing. So that's the issue for me. Worst position group is you're not scared that the quarterback's going to beat you. You're scared that you're going to beat yourself, kind of thing. Needs to win the division is this new offensive coordinator out of Seattle can get the most out of the QB like they did with Geno. That's going to be the key. That's how they're going to win this division because they got a pretty stout defense. There's big names across the board there on defense. If everybody plays healthy and stays together, you just got to get this QB situation handled and playing well. I got the range, kind of a biased opinion. I'm going to go 6 wins up to like 10, maybe 11 if things click, but I'm going to, safe route 6-10. Biased opinion though.
Very biased. I went with defensive continuity because I like what Todd Bowles does. You're returning almost the whole defense from last year. Added some nice pieces in the draft with Cavassier and what's the other kid out of Pitt? His name
Yaya
escapes
Diaby.
me. No,
Yaya
Diaby's
Diaby.
nice too.
Oh,
No,
Campbell.
Kendrick Clancy out of
Fan.
Pittsburgh. Big fan of his.
The D
Big fan of
lineman.
his. So the overall defense, top to bottom, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I was going to go wide receivers, and I was kind of hesitant to do it, so I'm very glad you did. You touched on all the people I was going to throw out there. As far as the weak spot, it's the overall depth for me, just team wide. There are some strong position groups within this Tampa Bay roster. They're 2 years removed from being Super Bowl champions, so it's not a team that's been depleted by any stretch of the imagination. But you touched on the guys pulling the trigger. That's going to be huge. And did you fix the offensive line? Because you're going to need help there. And for them to reach that 10-win plateau, which is probably what it's going to take to win the South, you're probably not going to have to get much more than that. You could win the division with 9, I guess, considering
Again.
what it looked like last year. But find me a running game. I could have easily went weak spot running backs. Rashad White looked nice last year, but by no means did he look like a franchise running back. And then behind there, similar to Dallas, you brought over Chase Edmonds as your backup. Not a fan. Not a fan of that position group. I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Bucks. I got them 2 to 6 wins. How about you, Ed?
No doubt. Look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. Best position for me jumping off the board right away was the linebacker position. Tryon, White, David, Barrett. How do you not like that? Behind that, though, not much depth. Worst position for me, QB. You got a fiery one, though. You got one who's not scared to take a chance. He's a slinger. You can be happy about that. He's a slinger. He's a gun slinger. What does Tampa need to do for to win? Everything. I basically put down the sun, moon, and stars will have to align. I'm going 5 to 8 wins here. I sent it to Charlie so he can confirm. That's what I actually put. That is exactly what I actually put. I have writers that write this for me. And so I just think that Baker's just going to have to come in and do too much in order for them to be successful. And for that, guys, I am out on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 5-8, though, gentlemen. I think the Bucs could still have a good year, and I like the kid out of Syracuse, the running back Tucker.
Yes, I do like Sean Tucker. Good story. Good story.
All right.
Yeah, Bucks are it's tough because there's still a lot of talent there, and I was thinking about it as you're talking with Baker being a gunslinger and the wide receiver room being a favorite of me and Brady's. I think they can put up some points,
Oh, they'll
but
put up.
how
They'll
much are you putting on Baker's shoulders, and how much can he carry that whole load? It's
But I'm gonna say it like I said it at work, and everybody at work said I was out of my friggin' gourd. But you see, the problem with Baker is he's not gonna go out there and win you games. Baker, dude. If Baker, you hear this, I'm sorry, bud. You're a baller, cuz. But the thing is, within the guidelines of you being a baller, you're a system guy, and you need to be put in the correct system. And the problem with everyone who keeps picking up Baker and putting him on his team, except the Rams, understood you were a system guy and got out of you what they needed to get out of you, and realized that that guy's not going to work for this system. They let you go. But I hope the Bucs coaching staff is intelligent enough to see that this is a system guy and we know what he's good at, and let him do and play to what he's good at. That play action is really what he's good at.
yes.
Except you need to have an exceptional run game, like, say, a guy like Nick Chubb, in order for him to be successful. So that's my take on Baker. I'm not hating on Baker. He's a cool cat. He speaks his mind. But I think he's a system guy in order for this to all, the sun, moon, and stars got to align, peeps.
Yeah, hey, fair assessment of my Bucks. I'll take it. I mean, again, I labeled it out there. I was going to be biased about it, but you guys all got
I tried to
valid
go
points.
easy,
I can't argue. No, hey, it's truthful. Hey, there's Bucks fans out there right now. They're going to tell you, hey, screw it. Let's go one win and let's go get, USC kid,
Hell
Caleb
yeah.
Williams. But
Yeah.
we'll see how this season plays out.
Okay.
I don't think anybody ever really wants to be that team. So we'll see. Even though we did it once already and it didn't work out, but yeah, let's brush that under the rug.
That's what I
All
feel
right.
about the Bucks. It's kind of which way do we want to try to go here? Which course do we want to try and set? Do we want to be
Yeah.
mediocre for a little while, or do we want to break this thing down, keep some pieces, and try to build
Yeah.
around?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no team like Green Bay for the past 10 years for the North where you can be middle ground but still be bad kind of thing and take your losses to get you guys you want so you can build up when Green Bay finally falls.
Right.
So we'll see.
Right.
But let's keep the train rolling here. We got the final NFC division here, going NFC West, and we're going Arizona Cardinals. And best position group, because I had to pick one, I'm going to go safeties here. Buda Baker, Jalen Thompson, they're both really good. They both can shine. They got to stay healthy, and they got to act youthful. It is what it is. But they're good safeties, and they can change games. They can break up passes, get their interceptions. But again, they can't win the games by themselves. Worst position group here. I'm just going to go trenches. O-line, they got to do more to protect Murray. He's too small. You saw his troubles once everybody figured out. You keep him contained. You don't let him scramble. You make the man see over the big offense line and your defense line putting their hands up, and it's hard for him to get a rhythm going. And the offense falls and fails when he can't get a rhythm and can't get moving. Defensive side of the ball, they weren't able to stop the run, and they weren't able to get to the QB last year. Those, just flat out got to improve it. If you want to be a competent team in this NFL, you gotta at least somewhat excel in one of those categories, whether it's run stopping or getting to the QB. One of the two, you gotta get one. Y'all had neither. I hate to do it. And hey, maybe this new head coach Jonathan Gannon might needs to win the division. Is he can pull a little mini miracle here and make this defense scary, attacking the QB heavily. Work work the magic here. He had all the tools he could ever want and then some in Philly. His tool bag's pretty slim here in Arizona. We'll see where he takes it, but I got them 2. If everything clicks and you get the Murray of his rookie year, you can get up to 7, I think, but 2 to 7 is where I got him.
It'll be interesting to see how the offense takes shape now with the new coaching staff. Arizona, tough, tough. I went young talent just overall on defense. Talking about Kaiser White, talking about Isaiah Simmons, Buda Baker, Xavier Collins, Majay Sanders, drafting Ojulari. You still got Cam Thomas as well. There's a lot of athletic, very good young talent on that team. And I think you're right. I think they're going to be very aggressive. It's going to be a sellout, Wink Martindale type of situation defensively to where they're going to come after you. And it's going to cause some problems for some teams. When I look at the weakness, it was easier to find the weakness on the team. Surprise, surprise. I'm gonna take a page out of Eddie's book, which is it goes James Conner and I'll wait because that running back depth chart is atrocious in my opinion. I don't know how you don't at least spend a draft pick picking up a running back. So it was a pretty decent running back draft class. There was a lot of talent there. Just take one of the guys. I don't like it at all. I think that's going to put more pressure on Kyler Murray if something happens to Connor, which I'm a big James Conner fan, have been since he was on Pittsburgh. But to ask him to be the every down, do it all superstar back, I don't think it's within his skill set. He's a very capable pass catcher, and he's a beast in the goal line. And he's a tough kid, tough kid. Like him a lot. But 4 to 6 wins is pretty much where I settle with Arizona because there is talent there. There is some nice playmaking. I think you will get some flashes out of Kyler Murray. I like the receivers. There's playmakers there. They will at times put up points. I think at times they're going to be inept on offense just because the balance is going to be hard to catch there. And I think the defense is going to create some turnovers, cause some more pressures and sacks this year because of the defensive minded coach coming into town and the talent that I mentioned. But I think they're going to get beat on the back end as a result of bringing the house, which is kind of live by, die by philosophy. So 4 to 6 wins with the Cards for me.
Yeah, man. I had to go and I had to pick a position group too that I didn't necessarily like. I don't necessarily like this position group. I don't necessarily think I think that this is the most important position group, and this is why I chose it, QB position. Because if Kyler doesn't get it together this season, then I don't know that moving forward many more seasons, he'll be an Arizona Cardinal. I went worst position was a wide receiver position just because, after DeAndre Hopkins left, we really didn't see much out of anyone else on that roster. And a lot of those guys are coming back this season. What will have to happen in order for the Arizona Cardinals to be successful, the defense will have to play above and beyond the expectations of whatever you had for them coming into this season. And by some magical miracle that this offensive line can stand up and show out for Kyler Murray and not allow him to get hit, even though I'd love to point out that he had a non-contact season-ending injury. I think that Kyler Murray is going to have to play all 17 games, and it's going to have to be a stellar performance in order for them to win the division because they're in such a tough division, a top-heavy division. The top two teams in this division are very tough, and they will need to beat them both in order for this team to be successful. It's a 4-7 win team. I think they're more or less a rebuild team now at this point than they are a contender. In my opinion, there's still talent on the team to be had, but I don't know which direction this talent is moving.
Yeah, that's the Arizona Cardinals. That's unfortunately as much as we can get out of it. It's squeezing to get some juice there. But let's move on. Los Angeles Rams, another one, tough because you don't know whether you're going to get the Super Bowl caliber players or you're going to get the dudes that look like they're aging out the league quickly. But for me, best position group here. I'm reverting back to the beginning of the show, taking the easy route out, D-line, and it's solely because Aaron Donald, just enough said. That man alone can cause havoc. There doesn't even need to be 4 other dudes next to him on that D-line, and you're going to have a problem running the ball or even passing the ball. That man's just a beast. So best position group D-line because it's him, and then he's got guys next to him that he's going to make look even that much better. Worst position group here, I'm going to go running back. Unfortunately, Cam Akers. I'm not a big fan of Cam Akers as it is, and they're just not a run team. The fact they won a Super Bowl this way absolutely blows my mind. I'm sorry. I hate to be the hater on you guys that you pulled that off. But again,
Coaching, man.
Cam Akers is not the guy as Soda meme it up. But yeah, so needs to win the division. Stafford, brand new, perfect elbow, no problems, back to throwing dimes. And Kupp returns to being that triple threat for him. That's what you need because that's your offense is Stafford and Kupp. Everything else builds off of those 2 dudes playing at their peak. That's how you won the Super Bowl. That's how you're going to win the division is off those 2 dudes' backs. I got the range anywhere from 5 if things don't click, up to 11 if things do click. Because this team again can be scary. You got good coaching. Sean McVay's phenomenal. You got big name talent on the board. You just need things to click correctly.
Yeah.
Where you at, Charlie?
For Rams, it'll be kind of a theme for this division. I went coaching. The coaching staff. I'm a big fan of Sean McVay and the offense. I love the way he allows his assistant coaches to have ownership within the offense and the defense. That's why so many of them are sprinkled around the league right now. And also Raheem Morris got a lot of love and respect for the way he coaches defense. Wasn't a big fan of him as a head coach over there in Tampa, but defensively, he's a brilliant mind. I like the way they implement their schemes. That does lead me to the weakness, though, because there's just so much inexperience on that side of the ball defensively. It's ridiculous. They've been devoid of draft picks for a number of years now, and the talent is, you're really having to dig deep to find these late round undrafted kids and bring them in. I got faith in them that they're finding some hidden gems in there, but it's gonna take some time for the Rams. I do like the kid Young out of Tennessee. I think he is going to turn out to be a good one. But in the end, as far as having hope towards winning the division, I think it would take a number of things to happen to the top half of the division. Number one, and it would take an incredible coaching effort to bring together this young team and have them gel very quickly. But, honestly, we were talking the same way about the Seattle Seahawks last year, and they blew our minds. To say that it can't happen with the Rams, I'm not going to sit there and say that. I feel more so against Arizona on that side of things. There is the possibility there, but 3 to 7 wins is what I gave them because I just think overall it's going to be so tough. There's so much needs to go right for them, and they have to hit so much that as much as I love the coaching staff, it's going to take a lot. How about you, Ed?
Fair.
No doubt. Well said, Char. I got a best position group for me. Matthew Stafford and Stetson Bennett coming over from the Georgia Bulldogs. I think he's in a really good position. And if Matthew Stafford can hang on for maybe another two to three more seasons, maybe, I think Stetson Bennett's going to really learn a lot and potentially end up easing right into the starting position, potentially moving forward. He's a very athletic kid, and he's got an arm on him, so he can get the job done throwing it. And he makes decent decisions. I just think he should sit back, relax, and learn a little bit from how good Stafford is all those years being as successful as he was. Worst position group for me is defensive back by far. When you go and you look at ESPN.com, and you take a look at all the defensive backs, the oldest defensive back on the squad come over from Seattle, Witherspoon, 7 seasons in the league. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rookies at corner. They're rookies, and then a bunch of year two, year one, and a year three guy. I think it's a super young position group, and I think they're just going to get taken advantage of by these skillful wide receivers. Not saying that they don't have talent on the roster or speed to even defend, but to just not have the age and the wisdom going up against some of these receivers in this league, the big bodied ones and the small, quick shifty ones. I think potentially throughout the game you're going to end up seeing what I'm talking about. Personally, I think this is a rebuild year for them. I think that such a top heavy division with, I spoke before about the 49ers and Seattle Seahawks, how good they are a season ago. And the fact is they're just scoring 18 points a game. And ladies and gentlemen, and whatever you identify as, that's just not going to be enough to win games in this league moving forward to even try and attempt to get a Super Bowl ring here. We're looking at 5 to 8 wins, guys. That's what I'm seeing here out of the Rams. I think it is a rebuild year for the squad. What do you guys think?
Yeah, you touching on the defensive backs and how young they are. That's part of the reason why I like the scheme that Raheem Morris employs, and part of the death of them too, and saying that the inexperience there is going to be the death of them, because they employ more defensive backs on their regular packages than nearly any other team in the league. I like the way they run the defense, but yeah, it's going to be a big ask to keep all these guys, these young guys, up to speed on everything that they're going to need to do.
No doubt.
All right. Next NFC West team here. Let's go. Jump in. San Francisco 49ers. For me, I'm going to take a page out of Charlie's book here, Best Position Group. I'm going coaching. Kyle Shanahan just proves he's one of the best no matter what situation he's dealt with. He's got a rotation of coordinators that come in and leave, go do their own thing, and he continues to still excel. He's a great coach, and he's proved it. Worst position group here. I'm going to go QB just because, what is it? Is it Purdy? Is it Lance? Are you going to go Darnold? Who's it going to be? There's no – it's a difficult situation for them. And then whatever they end up choosing their starter, are they going to be able to get a return out of one of the others maybe middle of the season, get something out of it? I don't know. And the issue with me, quarterback, it's like a make or break decision, right? This team is been on the cusp of potentially getting to that Super Bowl for 10 years now. They've just been waiting, and none of these guys I don't think can carry it on their own. So you're going to need it from the coaching here. That's where, for me, worst position group is, because without Shanahan, these guys aren't going to get you to the playoffs. So for jumping over to needs to win the division is the offense can continue to pull a rabbit out of the hat with the magic from the best magician there is in coaching with Kyle Shanahan. I'm just going to continue to toot this man's horn, whatever it is,
For
pay
real.
me, man,
For real.
pay me Shanahan. Cause I'm tooting you up here, but, and then secondly, dude, staying healthy, this team riddled with it year in, year out. Not to knock you Philly fans, don't shoot me for this, but potentially cost them the NFC Championship game. They weren't even in it because of an injury there in the first quarter.
Yeah.
That could have been a dogfight for Philly. Not even, they could have knocked him out. We don't know. They hurt Purdy early. That was the only thing they had left. That man's throwing with his pinky finger at the end of the game there. For me, range, I got him 8 wins, low side. Nothing works out, up to 13 wins if, Shanahan does what Shanahan does.
Yeah, I can't disagree. As much as nationally Dallas gets, thrown under the bus with coming up short and all this talent and all this stuff, like you brought it up, the 49ers have been there year after year after year, even though people doubt it,
After year after year after year.
and they haven't cashed in yet either. And it's like there's a lot of teams out there that, if you look at it, it's like, man, why don't you have a Super Bowl by now? For me, I went Kyle Shanahan, front office. They've drafted so well over the years, just so well, just knocking them out of the parks. And when you look at the draft picks at the time of the drafts, nobody was drooling over these guys. Nobody was drooling over these guys, but they turned into studs after studs after studs. And the way Shanahan's able to coach these quarterbacks, make it user friendly for them on offense. I mean, it got to the point last year, like you brought up, Christian McCaffrey was getting ready to take snaps at quarterback. That's how down bad they were at quarterback. And it seems year after year, no matter what, you look at these three quarterbacks that are on the roster, you got to say, listen, Brock, you're going to play some games. Trey Lance, you're going to play some games. And Sam Darnold's going to play some games because it happens every year with them. I think, when I look at the weakness, it's just that it's health. Can they stay healthy? Whether it's at the running back position, whether it's at the quarterback position, whether it's Bosa on defense. Can you guys stay healthy enough to complete the mission this season? Because they're talented enough, and the coaching staff is in place. Everything's there, right for the taking for San Francisco. 8 to 12 wins. They should win this division, but don't sleep on the team that we're about to talk about next. How about you, Ed?
Let's go. Yeah, man. For me, what jumped out at me was the absolute depth that they got on the defensive line. We're looking at Drake Jackson, Javon Hargraves, Ark Armstead, Nick Bosa, Javon Kinlaw, Ceylon Farrell, Taco Charleston. I mean, it goes on and on with this defensive line here and the depth that they have. For me, the wishy-washiest one here is also on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go ahead and say the defensive backs. I like what they got going on at safety. I think they got some decent depth. J.R. Brown, Gibson Jr., Senior, Hafunga. I think that the defense is going to play well. I think the keys to this is to just keep doing what they're doing, whatever coach is doing. You guys are right. I mean, for me, it's the coaching staff is keeping the squad so fucking elevated to the next level. They're above everybody else in the NFC, regardless of the fact that they're just, I mean, it doesn't even matter who they have play at quarterback. It's absolutely amazing to me. And this is the exception to the rule. If you could ever even play out the definition in real life, like this is the exception to the rule. No other team has been able to do what San Francisco has been able to do at the quarterback position and still stay relevant consistently year after year. It doesn't matter who it is. I mean, are you telling me the Raiders are going to be a playoff team with Jimmy Garoppolo? They're going to go. I mean, that's what the 49ers were doing from day one. As soon as they traded for Jimmy and he came over, let's not forget. I think that the 49ers are never going to miss a beat. Tommy John surgery, this quarterback, that quarterback. Hell, Brady, they'll put you in and have you throw for them. And
hey, I'll take it.
You'll probably win. You'll probably win an NFC championship over there. 10-13 wins. How could I not? San Francisco messes around, wins a division again. That's how I'm seeing it. What about you guys?
Yeah, it's potential. San Francisco should be the favorite, but
Drake Jackson is the next man up. He's a freak.
Yes, sir.
Look forward to watching him flip.
USC.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, let's jump. Final team here. Final team NFC. Final team NFC West.
Let's go.
Seattle Seahawks. Best position group, wide receivers. You have to. Big man DK Metcalf. You got the veteran Tyler Lockett. And now you added arguably the best wide receiver in the draft class with Jackson Smith and Jigba. You got dudes all over there. Someone's going to be open almost every play. And you got the most out of Geno Smith last year. That, let's hope he continues that trend, continues to play at that level. As a scary offense, just that alone.
Almost 5,000 yards.
Yep. The issue now arrives where it comes to me, worst position group. I'm going to go trenches. I'm going to go both sides of the ball here, just mainly interior for both sides. They're outside. They got good tackles, both, good offense tackles and good, edge there, guys. But defense interior line, it's basically entirely new for Seattle. The only guy that's returning is Jaron Reed, and he was like a rotational guy. You paid big money for Draymond Jones to come over, and then you got this rookie nose tackle, Cameron Young, you guys, that they say they love, We'll see how it plays out. Similar to New Orleans Saints, new system, new guys. Let's see what plays out here. How long is it going to take for them to click together? Are they going to play well together? O-line interior on the other side. The guards were good, but they weren't great. They did a little bit of moving around last year between Damian Lewis and Phil Haynes. You got a center battle going on you got the Evan Brown vet, and then the rookie you picked up Oluwatimimi. I can't even these names.
You did
These
a
names
great
in the
job.
NFL need names.
Did a great job.
Oluwatimimi.
You did good.
Yeah,
You did
dude.
good,
But
kid.
he's a good center, and he's battling a big dude. Big strong, potentially big strong guy like Evan Brown. But again, it's just one of those things. How well can that click? How well can that gel? That the being able to know what the guy doing next to you on that O line in the trenches is huge. And if one guy makes a mistake, the whole line makes a mistake. So that's where it is for me. The weak side for them is just trenches in general. Needs to win the division. Obvious answer is Geno Smith plays the way Geno Smith played last year. It wasn't just a fluke. With that, you need San Francisco's health issues to kind of continue the way they are. I got to say what it is. Got to call a spade a spade. They need San Francisco to regress while they continue as what they are, and even potentially continue to grow. Range wise, I got them at an 8 to 10 win team. Right in the middle. I'd like to see them splash and get some big again, but again, I think they benefited from kind of an easier schedule last year, a little bit tougher this year. I want to see how this plays out.
That was a fantastic review. Fantastic. I went secondary, which easily could have gone wide receiver room. I went secondary. You're talking about the guys coming back from last year, Tariq Woolen, Mike Jackson, who came out of nowhere, another University of Miami kid. And you got Quandre Diggs back there, but you added Julian Love, which I thought was a complete steal from the way he played for the Giants last season. And then you went out and you drafted Witherspoon out of Illinois, as one of my favorite corners in the draft as well. That secondary is stellar. I also went trenches. I went D line instead of offensive line as well, though. But I went D line because the games I saw them struggle in, and the one that really pops into my head is the Carolina game. It was late in the season, and Carolina, all they could do was run the ball. You knew they were going to run the ball, and Seattle couldn't stop them from running the ball. That's going to have to get better because we know as you get to playoff time, which I expect Seattle to be sniffing the playoffs come the end of the season, you get to playoff time, it turns into a different game. And, the flash and dash slows down a little bit. Weather gets colder, and you're going to have to control the trenches on both sides of the field. So it's interesting you bringing up the offensive line. You're right, because if pressure's in Geno's face, how does he react to that type of situation? Plus, you don't have a smash mouth run game either. So could have gone a bunch of different ways. I think this is a 8 to 11, maybe 12 win team. I think they have the possibility to win the West. It's going to be a coin flip. I feel like between them and San Francisco, whoever is the healthiest at the end of the season is gonna take this one as well. What you got for Seattle? Ed?
Yeah, I'm looking at the exact same thing you were looking at. I love the DBs over there coming back from a season ago, plus the acquisitions that they drafted. Witherspoon out of Illinois, absolute beast. And also for me, my worst position is not D-line, but D-tackle. The D-tackles for Seattle have been atrocious up the middle. I like Nwosu coming off the edge. I like a couple of these guys coming off the edge. But for me, it was the interior that was just, it needed help. And hopefully they got that with Cameron Young, rookie out of Mississippi State. And you get some production out of him, hopefully early and often. But to me, last year, that was a gigantic hole that popped off on me every time I would watch them play. What do they need to do to win? Start by scoring more points. Let's start by doing that. You need to score a little bit more in this league that we're in. And play a little bit better on both sides of the ball. You're going to have to elevate your play from what you did last year to better than that this year in order for you to take the whole thing and go all the way. But the offensive line is really starting to gel. You got a lot of those guys coming back. You're going to get, Geno Smith is going to get the time, and now he's got the help all the way around catching the ball. So hopefully this run game with the 2 running backs that you accumulated in the draft, you have a sick rotation on both sides of the both aspects of the offense, whether it be the run or the pass. I got them a 8-11 win team because their division is still kind of tough. I mean, Arizona's still going to play them hard. They're still going to have to play the 49ers 2 times, and the Rams aren't pushovers either. That coaching staff, they're going to come and play. So their division isn't pushovers, and you got to stay healthy and continue on with what they've been doing. 8-11 guys. 8-11 wins on the season.
Yeah,
I like it.
so much talent in Seattle. So
For
much
real.
young talent. Can they continue to mature and, like you said, take that next step? Because it's going to have to be better than last year. I mean,
Yeah,
last year was amazing, but yeah, you got to be better.
For sure.
All right, gentlemen, that's the NFC. We gave everybody here a little bit of rundown, how each division, how each team's going to play out, how we think's going to play out, our favorites, our pros and cons. If you didn't catch it last episode, we did the AFC side of the ball. Next week, we're going to get you with a little bit of accolades and some playoff picture and how we think things are going to go down. Give you guys our affirmative picks for who we think is going to win and how we think it'll play out. Anything else to add there, gentlemen?
No, sir. Excellent show, boys.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody.
Yes, sir. You guys have a great rest of your day, man. Thanks for checking us out, man.
Deuces.
Deuces.